Folks, hello. How's it going? We are here to have another little look at your opinions on one of my videos. I love doing these because a lot of your opinions are very thought-provoking, a lot of your takes are really cool to examine. So I thought we'd do another one because on YouTube recently, I've seen quite a lot of 40k content creators talking about alternatives to 40k as a game. I've even seen not just the usual guys, like your gameplay-focused guys like Mordy and Glory and people like that. I've seen other people who are lore YouTubers talking about moving away from 40k as a game because people have been very jaded with 10th edition and the way the game's been going. I've even had people... I watched one of Mordian's videos the other day where he was talking about really liking 7th, 8th and 9th edition, or at least being involved in them and collecting new armies in them, which means you like the edition, you know, to be honest. And even somebody who is as into 40k, like on YouTube, I don't think there are many people who are more into 40k than him in terms of a game. For somebody like him to say, listen, I've had enough, I'm going to go try other things. That's huge, you know, and that's one of the things that kind of got me on the scope of doing this video. Also, a game called Conflict 47 is on the way out now from Warlord Games, which looks like a real good game. This looks like the kind of thing... Remember all of the bad things I was saying about Trench Crusade? This is the kind of thing when I was like, yeah, this is what I meant. This is what you should be doing. You know, rather than being taken over by rampant idiotic politics and doubling down on it. But anyway, moving on. I asked you, my faithful community, to answer the following prompt to be in one of my videos. That is, what are your Warhammer 40,000 alternatives? What has pulled you away from the flagship game and why? I think we can all agree that 40k is the flagship game of our little hobby. And this is where we are. Let's jump in, shall we, with Gilbert, who says, Mezgeik and Project Morningstar. I was tired of Games Workshop's anti-consumer behaviour and found the wonderful designs made by these guys. Mezgeik makes Eldritch Deep Sea designs for Death Guard and Pirate Orcs, okay? Project Morningstar created their version of Power Armor and Tau. During one of their live streams, they mentioned that a certain design that isn't available as a mini yet was made with the idea of, and I quote, what if a tank was made into a mech suit, unquote. And that's exactly how I see their Barakan, soldiers who were turned into power armor with the brain of a world eater. Cool, sounds cool. Sounds cool. So a lot of the things with this, they're more abstract, all right? So there are a lot of folks out there who are just looking for something cool, and I think Gilbert is one of those people. He's not looking for a finished product. I'm more the kind of guy who's looking for something like Conflict 47. It's done, it's finished, the world is there, I can explore it, I can get into it. I like building and painting models, but it's not the main focus of this hobby for me, right? I'm more of a narrative and story guy. That's where I live. Latros says, I have been playing Infinity N5 and I'm not looking back. It's such a well-designed game that facilitates playing with your opponent rather than against them. That's something that I've seen not a lot of tabletop war games do, okay? 40k back in the day used to be a glorified role-playing game where you would literally play out a battle between you. It wasn't really... It was competitive, but that was like a very distant secondary thing in 1st and 2nd edition, maybe even a bit of 3rd edition. It was very much a distant second thing. You're there to see how these two armies will face each other on the tabletop and what's going to happen. You know, that's why campaign gameplay really took off in 3rd edition. 40k is a gentleman's game played by hooligans, while infantry is a hooligans game played by gentlemen. That always happens, though. Have you never noticed that the more ravenous a game is in its rules, and the more harsh it is to different people, the more like there'll be a lot of like shaking hands. You know, yes, fantastic. Ralphie May says bolt action, and now the new edition of Conflict 47. Warlord Games made a really fun ABD immersive rule set, and the order dice unit activations make the game engaging for both players at all times. Also, the new models Warlord has been releasing look great and are priced fairly. A $140 starting army for bolt action is a full 1,000 point army in the game. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, again, we have to be very careful about modelling companies saying, hey, it's really good value. Well, who's deciding that? You and your game, right? You and your game's deciding that. If you're telling me, my Warlord could release to you a box set with 4 models in it, and they could say, yeah, well, those 4 models count as a 1,000 point army, so that's £150, please. You know, infantry-sized models. Yeah, but they're really powerful. So, do you know what I mean? So we've got to be very careful about the way we're deciding what value is. Value to me is sheer model number. That's me. I take out all of your rules. Whatever your rules are in the game, I don't care. How many models are in the set and how good do they look? That's all I care about. Because if I start leaning into, well, that's a 1,000 point army and it's a really powerful 1,000 point army for only $150, wow. As soon as I start thinking that, I'm handing the right of deciding value over to the company who's trying to sell me something, right? That's not what I do. I look at the box set and I say, how many models are in it and how good do they look for what I want to do? If the value's still good, I'll buy that box set. Same thing went for the Wrecker Mob that I bought. Well, my missus bought, right, for me. For my birthday this year. Really good value box set. Loads of orcs in there. Same thing goes for this as well. You know, $140. I think you're approaching it in the wrong way, saying it's a 1,000 point army, but there are a lot of models in that $140 set, so it is good value. But be very careful with the way that you're defining value. Carter Bacon says, I moved on to collecting World War II firearms. Might not be a tabletop adjacent hobby, but it's neat. I realise that most of my matches with my buds end up with sour end notes, getting tabled, unstable codexes, and a never-ending arms race in my 40k community. I'll still keep my Trip Norn and Hierophant lists though. I appreciate you for all many years of enjoyment. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Carter. Cheers, mate. Rob said, and enjoy your hobby. Rob says, for me, it's very much a mix between Battlefield Gothic, 3000 naval wargaming, and historical wargaming. I appreciate Battlefield Gothic because it's the most underappreciated area of Battlefield Gothic, and I love how the lore around the Admiral Patrol, the Armageddon Wars, and the sheer variety of vessels that are there. I do use 3D prints, of course, as I'm not an oil magnate able to afford £250 to £350 for a single BNIB capital ship. I'm incredibly interested in naval history, as a Brit, and so I see the parallels between BFG and naval history, Battlefield Gothic. Yeah, I think Battlefield Gothic is really a game made by Brits. You can tell we're an island nation. You can tell it's made by people. Oh, by the way, Liverpool lost this weekend, so you know that's a real shame. A real shame. Can't really talk. We drew, so but anyway, wasn't losing though, was it? Anyway, okay. Where was I? Oh yeah. I see the Imperium very much in the same practical vein as the British Empire during its existence. The Imperium's underappreciated strengths are its production output, resources, and the sheer mass of the population across untold worlds. However, much like the British Empire was separated by oceans and seas, the Imperium is separated by oceans of stars. The might of the Astartes, Adepta Sororitas, Mechanicus, Grey Knights, and most importantly the Imperial Guard, quantity as a quality all of its own, is rendered useless, impotent, and worst of all, isolated without the Imperial Navy and the fleets of the Astartes, Mechanicum, and other Imperial factions. One of the really cool bits about 40k lore is when the legions are split apart, a lot of people just focus on that. They focus on the legions being split. The true genius of what Gilliman did is that he separated the Imperial Navy from everybody else. Yeah. Oh, nice. You've got a few... Shit, you got 5 entire Space Marine chapters of gone rogue. Cool. Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go? You got your own ships. That's fine. That's fine. That's a small fleet compared to like the massed, Imperial Navy. So yeah, very very clever. Ultimately, for the Imperium to last, victories and security of the void are needed beyond all else. This gives a sense of importance to space battles and campaigns that many of 40k's ground battles lack. It's also very easy to build a narrative campaign around a ship or a crew or officers or around a sector or solar system. Finally, small forces keeping costs down are viable for games or campaigns, and with the rules and errata online, modern Battlefield Gothic free online too, it keeps the cost of it very low. Outside of Games Workshop products, I very much tend to focus on historical wargaming and modelling. My preference is 1/3000 scale naval wargaming for World War I and World War II, as I'm definitely a naval man, though I do enjoy historical gaming, from ancient Egypt to the modern era. The prices are reasonable for these types of miniatures, they can be interesting and challenging to paint, there are multiple sets of rules for each an era and epoch, so you can always find a set you enjoy and what works for you. And finally, the sheer range of model providers, even before the advent of 3D printing, means that it keeps companies from price gouging, as I think we all feel Games Workshop does, it certainly does, as their competitors will gain ground on them through fair pricing. To me personally, Mr. Exile, I'm always interested to meet a fellow wargamer or modeller, whether they build or play a Games Workshop game mode, historical games, fantasy, sci-fi, or whether their entire collection is 3 figures to represent their D&D characters. It's simply nice to know that there are others out there who value these hobbies, the skill, patience and dedication it takes to enjoy them and become better at them, as well as the sense of community it can engender in a time when it seems people in the world are set on driving each other apart, not encouraging the growth of positive communities and togetherness. Please keep doing what you're doing, North. It truly helps people in some very difficult places. Cheers, dude. Thank you. Comment of the day there from Rob. Thank you, mate. Game Time says, so far, my favourite alternative to 40k has been Frostgrave. It's just a simple yet intricate system that helps make games feel unique. Not to mention the campaign system, which I did, wish it was a little bit more complex, kind of like Mordheim, but definitely is fun. Okay, dude, Mordheim is something that I think should come up more often in conversations like this. Nobody yet has mentioned previous editions of 40k. It's right there. No one's mentioned it. Laserspade says, as far as something adjacent to 40k, I've been really liking Bolt Action, but for more abstract games, I've loved Turnip 28 and naval games like Battlefield Gothic and Star Wars Armada are what got me into the hobby in the first place. I've also been slowly cobbling together my own skirmish wargame, so we'll see if it turns out whenever I get the rules refined enough for playtesting. Cool, man. Yeah, do that. Metagore says, Bolt Action, good rules and affordable models, it's an easy sell. Those are the two things, aren't they? You know, I would say there's 3. Good rules, good models, and affordable models. That's a successful game. Escape says, my 5-year-old son picking up a mech gun and making pew-pew noises. The best game of 40,000 I've ever seen. Didn't even need to look out an entire Date of Spaghetti rule up. Yeah, again, a lot of these are memory creators. That's what's more important, and I agree. You know, if your son picks up a Grey Knight or whatever, and he's like, wow, look at this, that's more of a shot in the arm for your own hobby than winning an entire tournament would be for me, you know. Justin Brown says, D&D, not the same genre, but it takes up as much time or more, and is honestly a good bit more fun. My genre adjacent would be OPR though. Good fun, and despite being simpler, feels much more customizable. Yeah. Sean Clark says, Middle-earth. Cool, Middle-earth strategy battle game. I like it. I started... How many more? Oh yeah, there's a few more. Okay. I started getting involved after COVID, and the community is so much more wholesome and welcoming. The hobby is a top class, and sportsmanship is better than any other system I've played. The independent event scene is stellar, and I find myself travelling the UK for events, and it's brought me out of my shell. The constant negativity and rules flow to 40k isn't something I'm going to return to with any haste. I'm glad Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game is with the SDS, Specialist Games Division, and not a flagship game. The niche of this game means only people of top quality are really involved. Yeah, it's like Games Workshop have given you license to gatekeep your own game. Do you know what I mean? Paladin Talkie says, I have moved to an older edition of 40k. I still do stuff with the old world, but I'm interested in older editions of Fantasy 2. Playing historical games like Hail Caesar is big for me too. As for what moved me from modern 40k, despite me liking some newer models, would be it feeling more hope punk than grimdark. It's like they want 30k big, powerful Primarch level heroes without understanding what makes them work in 30k. I got into 40k for the grimdark, the idea that this is the only way for humanity to survive. No other faction cares if we survive and would prefer we are wiped out or enslaved or tortured. To us, in the modern day, the Imperium are the worst monsters imaginable. In the setting, they are horrid, but they are the only hope humanity has to survive, since the alternative would be worse than we could possibly imagine. Yeah. I don't think any of that's controversial. Zachary says, Trench Crusade. Okay. Say what you will about it being too grimdark and the Discord moderator fiasco, but I've always had so much fun playing it. Getting into priming, painting the miniatures with leak character and style. What? Leak? Peak, I think you mean. Yeah. P is right next to L on the keyboard, I just checked, so yeah. With peak character and style, and unlike 40k, I feel like myself and the playgroup can come up with wacky narrative rules and shenanigans whilst actually having fun playing. Rather than 40k, where every game is a tournament layout with bland buildings and set parameters, Trench Crusade has so many ups, downs and randomness involved that playing feels more like a narrative, and not because I played badly or another person's army just happened to be better than mine. Yeah, I've always said, my issues with Trench Crusade aren't its rules. You know, but as a narrative guy, so what I think what Zachary's done here is that he looks like a more gaming centric person, right? And he's found a decent game in Trench Crusade, which I've heard it is decent game all around, and he's enjoying it, no problem. For me, I need the lore, and I need the Conflict 47. I need that. That's why I bought it, right? I need that. Conflict 47 is very grimdark. It's very dark. It's filled with nasty people, but it has a really interesting premise, a really interesting backstory, and it's got narrative cohesion, right? Building a really good world is like building a brick wall. You need your bricks, you need your mortar. It needs to be sturdy, on sturdy foundations, and you build it slowly from there. Trench Crusade is a load of bricks thrown in a pile. And just go, yeah, there it is. Anyway, here's the game. And I'm like, no, you've not got me. I'm sorry. I don't like your lore, so I'm not going to be a part of your game. Not my kind of thing at all. This is an art project that has a game attached to it. Not my kind of thing. Yes, I've read the lore. It's just not for me. It's just surface level. Here's what this is. Here's what that is. Just play the game. Just play the game. That's what it is. It's come on, play the game. Hurry up, play the game. You know, and not my thing. It's not my thing. Anyway, moving on. I'm not going to say that. Productions 24 for obvious reasons. With my accent. My alternative has been one-page rules for about 2 years now. I started getting into the miniature hobby space during Warhammer 40k during the late stages of 9th edition, directly when the Leagues of Atan had been announced. I didn't have a nearby game store at the time, so I played 40k on Tabletop Simulator. I grew frustrated with the rules and balance of the armies, so I began to look for alternatives. When I inevitably discovered OPR and its army builder, I immediately became drawn to it like a moth to a flame, and I haven't looked back since. Again, Games Workshop really do seem to sidestep a lot of new players with the way that they market their game. The simplicity and available nature of OPR just brings in people. It just brings in reams of people. Just like, yeah, that'll do. I can play that, you know. I don't know what that says. It's either a Russian or a Ukrainian name. I don't know. Please don't get offended. I don't know your languages. I'm sorry. Conflict 47, after I saw the refreshes that await us in the future. I'll repeat a sentiment I saw on the factions. In Warhammer 40k, I care for only one faction out of 20 plus. In Conflict, I'm stunned to choose between the 5 currently available. Warlord Games are some of the most switched on people in the industry. I agree with that. They basically went, let's take all the most talented people from Games Workshop and around, and then cherry pick decent dudes from the British wargaming scene, and we'll build a company. And they're still doing it now. And with the more points dense, expensive units available, an army can be constructed for less than €200. That's not to say the games are small, as there are shit muncher units that can fulfill the horde players' desires. There certainly are. There are actually factions in there that are basically mostly horde, mostly just like get all your dudes on the table and go crazy. It feels like I just witnessed the birth of a genuinely great game that would have been buried if not for Games Workshop's fuck-ups. That and Warlord has made it infinitely accessible to people with bolt-action models already good to go. Yeah, no. Okay. So every interview I've seen of Warlord games, they said the same thing about that, and that's they don't want bolt-action and Conflict 47 to be interchangeable. They made a very clear, concise decision to go in separate directions in terms of how the models look, and I don't think they'd ever stop you from playing in an event of Conflict 47 with bolt-action miniatures, but I think it will be frowned upon coming up. I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of them saying, look, no, you need Conflict 47 miniatures to play in Conflict 47 events. And I think that's fine. That's fair enough. This isn't one-page rules, right? It's fine for me. For a company to say, I've made this game, please play with the models that I made for my game. I'm going to do the same thing. Like with Feudal Punk, a game that I'm writing, at the start I'll say, play with what you want. As long as it looks like a knight that's slightly futuristic and not a space marine, you can use it, right? Doesn't matter. But when I get my own models sourced, I'll be saying, no, these are the legal models from my events, right? That's what I'll be doing. It'll be a few years away. For the first few years, I'll be saying, use what you want. As long as it looks like what's in the book, use what you want, right? And it's on these size bases, use what you want. But there will come a time when I say, no, I'm selling my own models, play with those models in official events. If you're in your own home, do what you want, man. Do what you want. But in official Feudal Punk tournaments and events, use the models that are available for purchase. That's my take on this anyway. Got a bit of fluff on my mic there. That's my take on this anyway. And that's what I think Conflict 47 are going to do, Warlord Games. They're going to be, at the start, they're going to be more understanding of people with bolt action wanting to move things across. But I think they would rather you have a bolt action army ready to go to play bolt action with, and a Conflict 47 army to go and play Conflict 47 with. They don't really want you converting your old models because, by the way, these are old school modelers. These are old school guys who do wargaming. They don't want you to wreck your old World War II models. They think they're awesome, right? They want to don't stick mech arms onto your tanks, please. Like, they want you to use the new stuff. Why would they make it otherwise? Anyway, all right. Okay, that Warlord has made it infinitely accessible to people with bolt action models already good to go, and brand new players like me with beginner, starter boxes and trail box, not entirely sure on this one, that for $40 you can get the core rules and paper cutout of the units on the cover, dice, terrain, and all that stuff. I'm hopeful K47's future, as if it can introduce some competition for Warhammer 40k, we'll see Games Workshop actually look up from their pile of money, and did I forget to mention, there'll be lore books written by some big names to start a black library of sorts. Yeah, I'm conflict confirmed. Sorry for the rant. Yeah, there is. They've got some very good writers on board as well to write it. And Warlord are doing exactly what I told Trench Crusade to do. And there we are. Exactly what I told them to do. To get me involved. Now, don't get me wrong. Why should they care? I'm just one dude on YouTube. And that's true, right? But I was asked the question, and I answered it. Like, if I was going to be into Trench Crusade, what would I need to see from them? And that's what I need to see. Is a more in-depth lore background, actual novels coming out, actual care and attention given to the setting, rather than just getting a game out there willy-nilly straight away. Actual proof that this is more than just a few pieces of artwork and a few lore blurbs as part of a world. More than one map. I want to see in depth what's going on. What's the wider lore. I know more in. Do you know what else? Right. It's wargaming for the Dark Souls people, right? I don't care about your game if the story is crap. And if you give your story to me in inventory excerpts of different pieces of armor that I picked up and weapons that I picked up, that's rubbish. No, I'm sorry, it is. Your game doesn't have a story, right? In fact, the one that I really did enjoy, Sekiro, has a story. Completed it, loved it. It has a story, right? Dark Souls, rubbish, no story. Sorry, there isn't. And your little diatribe in the comments doesn't count. You're pointing me to some YouTuber who... And every single time I see either a Trench Crusade person talking about the lore, or a Dark Souls person or Elden Ring person talking about the lore in their games, it's unconfirmed bullshit. They're just making shit up. They're just looking at stuff that's in the lore and then extrapolating from there on what the lore could be without telling you that's their opinion and not actually what's there. Don't like it. Don't like it. Conflict doesn't do that. Conflict says, hey, here's the story. I know more about one of their... I watched one of their official videos and I clearly know what Rift Tech is. I know what Rift Energy is. I know how we went from World War II to where we are now. I know who all the factions are. I know how things generally work, and I'm ready to get involved. Because I've dipped my toe in and gone, ooh, the water feels warm, and I'm ready to get in, right? That's it. That's all it is. It's very simple. And Warlord games seem to know what they're doing. They seem to know exactly what they're doing. They know how to make a game and how to get it out to you and how to make you enthused about it because they know who their target audience is. Right? If you don't market your game to me, I'm just not going to buy it. And I'm sick of people giving me emails and comments about how I'm a bad person for not liking Trench Crusade or Dark Souls. Go fuck yourself. Like, go fuck yourself. You know, no. I have other things to do. I don't need to like the things you like. As long as my criticism is honest, which it is, I don't think any of you can tell me that Dark Souls has a good story. Right? And if you are, you're fucking lying. Same thing goes for Trench Crusade. Don't think any of you can tell me there's a sweeping, cool narrative back there with lots of depth. You can't. Well, you'd be fucking lying to me. So, I don't like it. And I'll move on to something else, i.e. Conflict 47. I'll move on to that. You know? I've seen what I don't like. I'm very glad you found something you like. And this is the difference between me and you, Dark Souls and Trench Crusade fans. The difference between me and most of you is I'm happy you found something you like. Because I don't need to like it for me to be happy that you like it. It's fine. Right? But apparently it's a problem that I don't like your game. And I don't understand that at all. Like it just doesn't compute for me. You need better things to be doing with your time than worrying about what games North is playing. Anyway, Chudia says, I started to get into bolt action towards the end of 9th edition as a secondary game, and over the course of 10th have found I just prefer it entirely to 40k. No problem. So now I really only play bolt action, and I've been much happier. Again, people finding their own interest. But there'll be 40k fans out there who will have a go at you. Chudius will say, well, you shouldn't... Poor Games Workshop. No, just do what you want to do. Raven says, if we mean alternatives within the tabletop gaming sphere, then my answers would be OPR, Turnip 28, OCR RPGs, and Battletech. Battletech's first mention. I thought Battletech will be a lot more represented here. Outside of the tabletop space, I dabble in several other hobbies such as metalworking, historical reenactment, camping, and marksmanship. Nice, man. Nice. Traven says, been in a 40k funk for a while now, and I can't seem to enjoy the game much anymore. I'm going to try Age of Sigmar now that the Chaos Dwarves are back, but I've heard mixed things about the game, and the lore is definitely toned down for more sensitive audiences. I'd like to play Heresy, but the response at my friendly local game store overall has been tepid since the 3.0 launch, and not hiding my feelings on the new rules. I tried to demo 1.0, then 2.0, then 3.0, but the response of the gentleman who I demoed 1.0 with was, yeah, it's a very interesting game, but I'm sticking with Age of Sigmar, I think. Took the wind out of my sails. Keep in mind, I live in rural USA, and the next nearest game store is almost an hour away on a very dangerous road. Additionally, non-40k related, while it has been frustrating to learn 3D modelling in Blender, I have had some enjoyment in recreating and modelling some fan-designed Star Trek ships for 3D printing, and I'll see where that leads, I guess. Yeah, cool, man. Cool. There's a really male thing in solving cool problems, right? Like, for me, I found mine in modding, so I'd mod things like Skyrim and Fallout New Vegas, and I'd find ways to make the game work better, and make it run smoother, and make it run with more mods, and make more mods talk to each other better, and work better. And that's the kind of thing I really love doing, because I was making a game better, and also doing it myself, so I didn't have to rely on anybody else. Unless Todd Howard came and wrecked Skyrim with yet another 1 kilobyte update that breaks all your mods. Go fuck off, Todd. Thanks. Apart from that, that's the kind of thing that I really like to do. I know dudes who love working on cars who do the same thing, and I love dudes who are into 3D printing. They've seen a problem in their life, like Traven does here. Hey, I'm not getting that many games, and nobody really wants to play these games with me. And if I'm not going to have the games to play these models with, I may as well 3D print them. So how am I going to do that? I don't have a 3D printer, so I will learn how to 3D print. Guy solving his own issue. And once you start doing that, a whole load of possibilities open up, and you can spend hours, days, weeks on this new hobby that you found. V7 says, Magic the Gathering, Drafts, and Warhammer Kill Team. I don't like competitive 40k for many of the reasons you've discussed on previous videos. Just not a competitive game, and therefore I only play narrative 40k games. When I have a competitive itch, I'll do a Friday night Magic the Gathering draft. The Magic the Gathering scene at the store I go to is 75% people who shower and have jobs, and some of them are even women. As for Kill Team, I'm still new to it, but I've been to play at my store for a few weeks now. A game takes less than an hour, so you can play 2 to 3 games per night with different opponents and different models. P.S. I'm very excited for the Northern edition of 40k. It's the Exile edition of 40k, but yes, it is coming. 100% agree Space Marine armies should all require 80 to 90% of your models to be guardsmen, and having Space Marines only take up a small elite group. Cheers from North Carolina. Well, you'll be disappointed to know that in Exile edition there will be Space Marine armies. They'll be very small, but there will be Space Marine armies. That's just where we are. The only Space Marines that we've given the brush of super elites to are Custodians and Grey Knights and Death Watch. Those are the only 3, which are generally so expensive that you can only take them in like a soup army. With Grey Knights and Death Watch, they're only available to Inquisition armies, that kind of a thing. They're not available to anybody else. So, and even then, with the Grey Knight, you have to have an Ordo Malleus army, because they're not just going to turn up for the other parts of the Inquisition to try and keep themselves secret, right? So you'll need an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor, a load of Grey Knight, a load of henchmen, a load of guardsmen. That's your inquisitorial force, and for Ordo Malleus going forward, that kind of thing. Anyway, it will be announced pretty soon. I'm waiting on hearing back from a few art people, but it will be announced pretty soon. Thunderhammer Studios Canada says, it's honestly just the meta chase coupled with the never-ending mini-release cycle. I miss the old campaigns that were put out there that made Warhammer more than just a meta chase for tournaments and constant miniature releases for biggest 40k sales combos. I'm seriously considering moving to games like Quar or Conflict 47. Okay? Mayo French says, I find it interesting how many people see other games and miniatures as third-party or alternate sculpts, as though Games Workshop is the wargaming hobby. I get it. For years, I viewed miniatures through a how can I use it in 40k lens. I started painting miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons. In the back of my mind, I have always known there are other games and mini manufacturers out there. The gradual moving of many of my 40k models into Legends and the tightening of datasheets to what is in the box has made me sour towards Games Workshop, the company. I still love gaming and modelling. I found some freedom by building and painting without too much concern for rules or playing. This opened up my mind to other mini companies. So, alternatives to 40k. Regarding gameplay, my status for switching from 40k is in progress to one-page rules and Ravage Star. I will try the OPR Broken Truth crowdfunding campaign because I like the minis and I've been curious for some time. For Ravaged Star, I want to try it and I'm waiting for fulfillment of a crowdfund campaign. I played a game called Battle for Vedros with my younger son for a few years. It was a very streamlined game using Orcs and Space Marines models from the Assault on Blackreach era. It was perfect for introducing my son to wargaming due to the reduced mental load. Sadly, it did not scale well as my son's collection of Crimson Fists grew. He did not make the switch to 40k. I have tried Kill Team and Combat Patrol. Kill Team is not much easier than 40k. It isn't. In fact, it can be more difficult. One kill team is like playing 5 to 14 units, as each model has its own stats, etc. Combat Patrol was fun, but 4 units doesn't feel like the proper game of 40k. I feel like it would get old quickly without list building. Currently, I have started playing 8th edition 40k, using the indexes with my older son. I would consider this retro Hammer rather than old Hammer. Regarding miniatures, I have always had an interest in non-Games Workshop miniatures. I fell into the Games Workshop ecosystem for a couple of decades. In the past few years, I've been exploring other companies' products. I feel like figures produced by Wargames Atlantic, and I've built and painted squads from a few of their kits. Cool. I like the minis and terrain produced by Archon Studios. They have a walk and a tank that are pretty cool. I may use them in OPR. I did participate in the Veiled Touch crowdfunding campaign. The Veiled Touch are the not Chaos Space Marines. I really like the models and hope to use them in 40k. Ravaged Star, the system designed for them, and OPR. I also shop Etsy regularly. I've picked up some models based on G.I. Joe and cartoon comic series. Maybe I'll make a Joe vs Cobra game set using OPR Grimdark Firefight. Yeah, you're solving your own problem, man. Solving your own problem. Yeah, a Joe vs Cobra game set up using OPR Grimdark Firefight. Yes. Also, try Minimaker, man. Try Minimaker. Really good models in there. Try them out. Villadus says, right now, setting up a Dead Man's Hand Redux houses, have a couple of factions primed too. Plenty of other games too in my closet, waiting for attention. Moonstone, Infinity, Epic Pike and Shot, Test of Honor, Guards of Traitor Toll, Blood Red Skies, etc., from which to gradually find my favourite. I looked into returning to 40k a couple of years ago. I bought a Necron Codex, wasn't especially impressed with it, and it seemed to be outdated altogether. Couldn't implement the army idea I wanted to do with it either. What a waste of money. Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking at that now. Again, it's the more Games Workshop caters to the tournament scene and takes away options, and tries to boil your army book down to take one of these 3 armies or go away. The more you do that, the more the age of expression has gone, right? So back in the day, a gamer like Vidalus here, Villidius, here, would have gone back to 40k and he would have bought the old Necron Codex and gone, wow, cool, I can have an entire army of flayed ones, awesome, and I'm gonna have them run by this demonic Necron Lord he's also got the flayed one virus in him, and he's sending all of his dudes forwards. I'm gonna make myself loads of skin with green stuff. It's gonna be awesome, right? And the game would let you do that. As long as you had two normal infantry units and a HQ, go wild, right? Nowadays, not so much. Anyway, all old annoyances, such as waiting 10 plus years to get any attention to non-Space Marine factions. New annoyances, last played when Tau was new, like stratagems and gotchas, seemed ever more prevalent. Prices especially, as I'd have to buy and paint both my and my opponent's armies, looked unappealing. Finally, Games Workshop itself seemed to have become scammy, just like the video game companies I wanted to move on from. Oh, and whenever I saw some interesting Age of Sigmar or such factions, the online-only and sold-out scarcity model stuff with the most cool models, and how buying a non-mainstream army looked like signing up to become a third-class citizen, with even a chance of losing continued support for the army on a whim. After all, noticed how Warhammer Fantasy had been killed off over the years, and in such an insulting way too. I was actually interested in Savage Orcs for a bit, until I saw the state they were in, for fuck's sake. Probably forgetting some issues, but essentially looked like a bad long-term investment and even more toxic relationship than it used to be. And I'm too old for that kind of stuff now. Dude, you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. The biggest point that drove me away, says Fred Gerda, the biggest point that drove me away from Games Workshop on 40k are the ever-changing rules and prices. Another one would be the changes in the armies, example, the roles of different Marine squads. I don't really have an alternative to 40k since Star Wars Legion has similar problems. I play now mostly historic games now like Black Powder and Pike and Shot. Yes, the rules aren't perfect, but the rules aren't changing on a whip, plus they could be adapted to nearly every setting, be it fantasy or historic, and I can get a playable army for around €100 in the epic scale. Dram says, older editions of 40k mostly. There we go. I play a lot of 2nd edition and a little bit of 3rd edition. I've given OPR a shot but never really got into it. Yeah, you don't. If you like 2nd and 3rd edition 40k, you don't really need OPR, right? OPR is for people who really want to play 10th edition 40k or 9th edition 40k but are just done with GW. Do you know what I mean? I got sucked into Kill Team for a little bit, but they've taken the same direction in 40k and sucked all the fun out of it. Drago Bjorn says, I fight Boo Hurt. Okay. I also download STLs and have a friend print them up with financial and resin compensation. I'm not an abuser. I enjoy painting and will probably paint until I completely lose the use of my hand and eyes. I have it easier, an expat in Argentina, whereas a huge dead zone for 40k for Games Workshop is too expensive as it is. Okay. Frogjar says, The Doomed by Chris McDowell and Osprey Publishing. Think Monster Hunter as a skirmish game. I like how simple it is to build a warband and play a game. Can be played PvP or PvE, depending on how you want to play. Gaming terms there, player versus player or player versus environment. But okay. Kevin Howell says, fly fishing and playing rugby are still big for me. Warhammer's my main nerd thing, and I think another war game and card game would be just too much. I will say I generally enjoy 10th, still nothing particularly pulls me away. Social element of playing and the Zen element of painting are all I need. Rule change pace is a little too fast, that's my only complaint. Fair enough, Kevin, you stick to what you like. Mem says, Blackout for me. Okay. Had a friend that I used to play 40k with show me the game and I fell in love. The models are reasonably priced, come in 3 different material types and look rather good. There's enough lore to make the world worth exploring and investing in. The rules are free and easy to understand overall. The company that makes the game even has some YouTube videos explaining how it works. So, back up on top of the rulebook. Okay. The game is fast-paced and enjoyable without all of the piles of 40k complication. 10 out of 10, would recommend Blackout. For the rest of the prompt, it was 2 things that turned me away from 40k. First, I bought enough Leagues of Atan to field an army, and the new rule set dropped almost immediately and voided the money I'd spent on the codex. Second, disgustingly, Resilient was removed from the Death Guard, and something the models innately had, which decimated my other army. The Death Guard are incredibly slow and need that toughness to boost both to make them a viable army and to support the lore of how inexorable they are. Basically, I just lost interest after that. Couldn't find a good reason to continue sinking money into the game and models, only for some balanced nonsense or new rulebook to come out. Yeah, nobody's allowed nice things in 40k. If you have a nice thing that's quite powerful, even if it's completely balanced, they'll take it away. Because you can't have other people bitching and complaining. Warlord would just shrug and go, meh. Get good. I'm telling you now, on Exile Edition, that will be my response. If you're whinging about a certain codex being overpowered, my response will be, get good, build a better army. Because your own codex will have the power to beat that other codex. Alright? The choice is yours. Like, build a better army. Get good. I'm not writing any more rules. Lord of the Sith says, pivoting back to 3rd edition. By the way, if the rules are genuinely wrong and unbalanced, then yes, I will look at it, of course. But if I look at it and somebody's saying, well, why do Space Marines get 2 runes? Get good. Build a better army. Lord of the Sith says, pivoting back to 3rd edition, which is when I played before 10th edition. When I brought 10th edition, I felt like Charlton Heston in front of the half-buried Statue of Liberty at the end of Planet of the Apes. You maniacs, you blew her up. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Alex says, you're showing your age there, by the way, Lord of the Sith. Alex says, yeah, my alternative is writing my own rules. Good for you, man. Suffolk Moon Knight, sorry. Board games for me, they're way easier to set up, quick to play, and the rules don't change. I try to play campaign ones too, like Scythe, Pandemic, and Risk Legacy. Yeah, good. I remember me and my sister playing a game of Scythe on one night in a gaming store, and it's hilarious. Caspian says, I guess I've moved to historical games like Hail Caesar. Good for you. Just some hobby guy says, Firefight by Manic Games. Alternative activations, well-written rules, and cheap models. They have now expanded into epic scale models with their Warpath game. That's cool. I moved away from 40k after 10th edition started, when Games Workshop kept on charging the codexes and application codes. Glad I did after seeing the debacle that the constantly changing rules have become. Also, did the same with Horus Heresy when they changed the editions this year. It will be a very, very cold day in hell before I ever pay for a Games Workshop game. That Mr. Joker says, I like Heresy, to be fair. Okay. Sam says, I took a big step away from 40k in late 2023 because of the over-competitive scene filled with gotcha players and downright cheaters. That's when I stepped into Age of Sigmar, OPR, and Conquest, Last Argument of Kings. I did eventually come back to 40k, but kept it casual and never played a tournament. That's fair. Stefank says, I play one-page rules with a buddy from time to time. I tried to get into 40k, but I'm 41 years old and don't have the time to learn it. Buy all the books, which are eventually going to be obsolete anyway, and then play the game that takes hours and hours where, after half of it, I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm trying to get into Kill Team right now, and it pisses me off that I have to buy full rules which aren't included in the starter box, and which cost me 40 to 50 euros. Gilly Guy says, lately I've been getting into epic scale games with Epic Warpath and Battletech, mostly Alpha Strike, and got interested in Turnip 28. And lastly, designing a new war game with friends. I got tired of how Warhammer feels like mashing two armies together. While these other games have a little more movement before the clash, since every unit takes up less table space, T28 is for vibes and creativity. My own game for a car combat game focused on boarding actions and your dudes customization at Games Workshop has done away with. That's a big thing that I've not even seen Warlord talk about, and that's your dudes, right? Making your dudes, making them completely your own and doing your own thing. That's not something I've seen them talk about. That is a huge blind spot that companies could really take advantage of. There we go. Orin Solaris says, I swapped to Yu-Gi-Oh!, which, even at its worst and most absurd prices, is infinitely more affordable than 40k. Fair enough. You're paying for cardboard, though. Captain Octorus says, I have a couple I like the idea of, but Battlefleet Gothic when that existed, so I guess that leaves me with Legions Imperialis or Heresy, which people are encouraging me to get into. Also not Games Workshop, but I'm picking up Bolt Action. I don't play this yet, but give me enough money and I would. Well, good for you, man. Good for you. Potato says, constant rules updates, making codexes invalid on release. Core rulebooks I bought at the start of 10th is no longer valid unless I add the erratas, FAQ, and points updates. Yeah. And they're not cheap. Those books, I mean. I'm looking at 4th edition right now, and the difference is shocking. I literally just need the books and nothing else. Just grab and play. No searching for updates at all. I'm a guard player, and 4th delivers so much flavour to my army than 10th ever could. If I wanted to run a different regiment in 10th, then I need to tell my opponent, oh, they're Cadians, not X faction. 4th is a generic unit, a platoon squad, and I add whatever I want to them. Don't matter what they look like, they're guardsmen with this loadout that I purchased. If I want Mordians in 10th, for example, then I need to pray Games Workshop create a datasheet or models for them. Is that... Okay, does Mordian have another account called Potato? Because that's literally That sounds eerily familiar. A Carpenter says, I don't like that they don't produce enough plastic for me to get the things that I want or need, so I've started playing Blood and Plunder. It's pirate themed, you can have nautical battles, you can have land battles, you can have battles that do both. It's really fun and it's historic. I also don't like that Games Workshop seems to not give a crap about their fans and are all about the money and the scalpers, man. It's ridiculous. Dude, they could solve the scalper problem tomorrow, make a release run and then immediately do them all made to order. That's it. Throwaway Clover says, War Machine. The rules are sound, the model quality is tolerable, and it also scratches the itch I have left over from quitting Magic the Gathering. The Games Workshop edition of Treadmill is far too tiring, and I prefer the on-the-table rules interactions of War Machine compared to the big, boring grey blobs of stats smashing into each other that is modern Games Workshop game design. Juggernaut Official says, Kill Team. Much quicker, relatively cheaper. Fair enough. Be very careful though, Kill Team's not that much quicker or easier to understand than 40k. Topaz Tiger 2000 says, none. Warhammer 40k and Warhammer in general is the absolute standard for me. It's all. I'm also not interested in the other settings of things like Infinity, Bolt Action, or even Trench Crusade. Okay. That's fine. You like what you like. Yeah, there will be people out there who just like 40k and will stick with 10th and 11th and 12th. No matter how much Games Workshop gouge them or take the piss out of them, they'll stay there. These aren't really whales. They just like 40k. That's it. Just like 40k. I like 40k. I love 40k. But the game's shit. Just, you know. And Matthew Gordon says, right now, Conflict 47 and Bolt Action, because of the ever-increasing price of Games Workshop products, lore is a mess, and rule changes. With Warlord games, I get way more bang for my buck. Yeah. And Corbang Host says, OPR X-Wing, and now I'm looking forward to Conflict 47. Indeed. And those are your thoughts read out by Mr. North. There you are. Hopefully, you'll have a wonderful rest of your day. You know what my alternative is? Right now it's Conflict 47, and I'm building my own alternative. I'm looking to go back to 4th edition as well. Maybe having a look at that, because I've heard it's the best edition. I played 4th edition back in the day, really enjoyed it, so looking to maybe taking the Eldar for a spin in that, because they are a glass cannon, but if you know how to use them, I'm going to right some childhood wrongs when my Eldar were pummeled by Space Marines. Right, love you a long time. Speak to you very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you for some more Hobby Nightmares very, very soon. All right, have a good one. Bye now.